This is Boardroom Brunch right here on News 9 Live. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and what a fascinating time to be having this discussion on Boardroom Brunch, talking about India's infrastructure story, India's real estate development growth. What better location than the Hyatt Andaz at AeroCity, New Delhi, and who better to be discussing all these infrastructure and real estate growth stories with than Mona Chhabra, Partner Investment Banking at EY, Pushpa Bector, Senior Executive Director and Head of Retail at DLF. And of course, we've also got with us Mr. Gaurav Jain, Vice President Naredco and the CEO of the India Projects at Infracorp, Bahrain. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. But of course, before we start this discussion, my colleague Shweta Kothari joining me too. Shweta, take it away.
Well, Karthik, thank you very much. And as you rightly said, no better time to be discussing India's infrastructure story. There's a kind of thrust that we've seen in infrastructure, Karthik, over the past many months. And all of you people who are really at the helm of it. I want to first begin with you, Mr. Jain. You know, talking about India's infra growth story, a capex growth, a growth on ground. What are you making of what's happening as far as infrastructure is concerned? Has India finally arrived?
Well, to be honest, you know, it's a beautiful time to be in India. I keep telling my kids and everybody around that this is the time to be young in India. Why would that be? A, we are now at par with the world across everything except infrastructure till about 10 years back. And that is now soon catching up. Now, to travel from any part of the country to any other part used to be such a drag, you know, so it used to be such a difficult thing. Broken roads, no bridges, small roads, you know. Today, from here to Gorakhpur all the way, there's a beautiful highway in place. Delhi-Mumbai highway is going to be operational soon. It's an economic corridor, to be honest. A few of the best highways are getting connected from Mumbai to Goa down south, you know. So, major highway construction going on. And our Honorable Minister, Mr. Gadkari, keeps saying one thing that, you know, highways build United States of America. So why would that be? Because for me to travel from a town which has got no identity because there's no road around there, imagine a road going through Dehradun. I believe you come from Dehradun, you know.
I come from Dehradun.
Fantastic, both of you. So, you know, the reason why that place has now become how much drivable? 2.5 hours? 3 hours?
Approximately 4 hours for now.
Now when the highway is coming up, it's got to be
with the brake at Cheetal or without it?
So imagine from here to Dehradun in 3 hours, you know. Imagine from here to Chandigarh in 4 hours. You know, what does it mean? It means very simply, at the end of the day, my connectivity was the key. And those towns are now, nobody wants to come from those towns to Delhi, Mumbai, Bombay anymore, or Bangalore for that matter. They want to be staying there, enjoy the thrills of a small town, and they've got all the infra and all the amenities over there. So, infra, in my opinion, the way India is growing, we are going to be the fastest growing economy from an infrastructure perspective, and the fruits of that is evident by us saying that we'll be a 5 trillion or 10 trillion economy in 2030 or 2040 for that matter. You know.
Right. So, I mean, you know, I agree with you. The multiplier impact of infrastructure is very difficult to quantify, and many estimates go from as high as 5x to 20x. So, I think if you don't put a number to it, and if you just try to establish a trend line, and Pushpa, let me bring this to you. Infrastructure connectivity is helping the landscape of cities in not so metropolitan or urban districts now evolve. But at the end of the day, this multiplier effect is really going to materialize if you have jobs in those cities which are getting connected. And those jobs will need infrastructure which is more than the roads and the railways and the airports that connect them. Is corporate India or are GCCs looking at setting up corporate infrastructure by way of real estate in these cities which are now getting connected through the highways?
So, you know, what's really happening is today when people are talking about, I'll talk about retail. Now, interestingly, what's happening is retail brands used to be just in 10, 12 cities.
Right.
This was 5 years back. Now, they talked about 50 cities pre-pandemic. Now we are talking about 200. Towns and cities together. And why is this happening? Because of infrastructure growth.
Right.
And employment is a follow-up. Like if there are good jobs there, people would be situated in a smaller town, less pollution and better environments. So I think that trend has started, and I totally agree with him that like the American dream, you know, we all used to talk about the great American dream 80s. India is experiencing that now because there are two infrastructural improvements that we are doing, and I'd also like to emphasize the digital highways.
Right.
So we've got both the roadways as well as the digital highways. Digital highways, interestingly, what it does is that it incites curiosity in that small town boy or girl studying in maybe Siliguri to aspire for the best because they are getting exposed to it through their mobile phones. And hence with that, what's really happening is aspiration is going high, wanting to create wealth in all parts of the country is becoming high. And third, and more importantly, I think the whole startup energy that has started. Today, the youth is saying, I will want to set up a business, I will want to create a new brand. The number of brands that are getting created today are higher than ever before within the country.
Right.
So be it commercial real estate, be it retail real estate, they will all follow this path of where smart cities are because it just makes money sense.
But I understand the consumption side of the story. I understand the retail side of the story because there is a far bigger selling avenue available. But specifically commercial real estate, office complexes, how long before we actually see our urban cities, our metropolitans getting decongested, decluttered, and corporations really moving offices to tier 2 cities?
Well, I think Mona is really equipped to answer that one.
Mona, are you seeing that change? I mean, we've heard the likes of Nitin Kamath, we've heard the likes of, Infosys leadership now incentivizing people to not work from Bangalore and move to other cities. But these are few and far in between examples. Is there a trend line that can be well established now that in the next 5 years, in the next 7 years, 10 years, we will see our urban clusters getting decongested and quality jobs, white collar jobs, well-paying jobs moving out of the key metros?
So I think in terms of decongestion, I mean the whole thing of satellite towns, for instance the NCR and Gurgaon, Faridabad, all these places coming up, Noida coming up. So that to some extent had, that the focus was on decongestion. I think where the challenge was in going into further, into tier 2 towns because, the infrastructure was not there. But like we're seeing now, the infrastructure, whether it's the airports, aviation, whether we look at roads, whether we look at railways, whether we look at digital infrastructure, all that is kind of being ramped up quite a bit. So maybe not in the very short term, but, going forward, probably there will be some more movement. We saw during the pandemic as well that, there was the work from home and there were these some of the large corporates, they started getting their offices closer to where people were. So they started tying up with, the co-working space people.
Was that a fad?
Not a fad, I would say, but whether it's going to kind of take over the urban, tier 1 centers, that's not something I think which will happen. But I think there will be a good
It'll never
ways.
happen, or it won't happen in the foreseeable future?
In the foreseeable, I mean, we can only do that much crystal case.
Allow me to jump in
Sure,
here, Karthik,
sure, yeah.
Look at the simple, let's say, what is happening in the south of India versus what's happening in the north of India.
Okay.
In south of India, a place like Mysore today is on the map of every decent, let's say IT giant.
Right.
Now, I met somebody some time back and he said the reason why, and they're putting a high quality co-living or maybe a senior living accommodation.
Right.
He said that, it's all about education. Mm-hmm. Why Northern India has got a challenge versus South India and maybe some parts of Western India is because of the education.
Education, you're right.
The education there is 90% of a level which is, you can find good people in tier 2, tier 3. So what does he need? He needs a building, which is fine. Cheaper real estate, understood. But where is the resource?
Talent.
Okay. Which is the talent part of it. Mm-hmm. So there will always be a opportunity, I would call it, for the northern India towns, for them to ramp up their education system, so be able to call as a real knowledge pool. And that will be the next driver for the all such people. They want to be in the where the cheapest real estate and where the talent pool is.
Right.
Wherever these two are available, it's as simple as that. There's no other rocket science.
But it's still very difficult to get employees to actually come to these tier 2, tier 3 cities, which is what many IT companies are trying to do at this point. They're trying to incentivize, their employees. Please come and work with us. We've opened a new campus in a remote area in a tier 2, tier 3 city. The reality is that not many employees are still willing to actually go to these places to uproot remove themselves from, living in a metro or a tier 1 city to go back to or go to a smaller city. Do you see that trend still continuing into the future? Do you see more people now staying back where they are? Because I come from a small town and most of my peers had to leave that small town, which is Dehradun, to be here in Delhi. Unfortunately, in the past couple of years, the growth that we've seen commercially, for that matter, has still been concentrated in metropolitan areas.
So I think it's in terms of, so the tier 2 story is definitely here and here to stay. I think it's the quantum of growth which is, something which is, it'll take time because, it's a mix of all factors. It's infrastructure, like, Gaurav mentioned, it's the the talent pool being there. The social infrastructure is very important, and there is a whole lot of, social factors as well. People wanted also to move out from their towns and, move into the big towns.
In absence of better opportunities.
Or better infrastructure.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
So I have an example of Cyber Hub.
Right.
Now, when we created Cyber Hub, and during the pandemic, the number of posts we had from all the employees saying that we really missed that social interaction. I met my fiance here, we got married. So there's that whole social framework that's very critical for officers to also move. Yeah. So when the social framework moves, which is why I would say today we really pay a lot of attention within our office complexes to the amenities and the social framework that we are bringing in.
Right.
That really brings in the third place. You have your home, you have the social infrastructure, and you have work. Right. You have to balance the three out. When that moves equally well to tier 2, tier 3 cities, why not?
Sure. So, since you mentioned the social milieu, let me, delve a little deeper into the social milieu and look at it from a different prism. Right now, we are living in a time when the government wants to focus on affordable housing. I'll come to Gaurav with that question subsequently. And interest rates are high. There is no likelihood of a rate cut even in the next Monetary Policy Committee. And yet, premium and luxury houses are selling like nobody's business. What's going on? Explain this dichotomy to me, Pushpa. I want to understand the dichotomy from you and then come to the affordable housing specifically with you, Gaurav. So, Pushpa, let's start with you.
I handle
Who has
retail.
so much money to buy such expensive DLF houses? Explain to me.
You must ask the luxury team that particular question. But all I can tell you at a macro level is that people really aspire for a higher quality living. And we at DLF, we believe in that softer aspect of the higher quality living. We believe in communities, building of communities, and I think that's been the reason of success of our residential. And, we are at the forefront because of that.
Right.
So it really is the value that we bring to the table. Okay. I think that's the reason why it's been so successful.
It's a question I want to take to Gaurav as well.
Exactly.
Come to think of it, are Indians suddenly more richer? Is what's happening here?
Some Indians.
Some Indians, but but Gaurav, just on the numbers that are coming out, which is astounding at this point. You're looking at share of premium property growing to over 40% of the total housing sales, which essentially means that this segment has surpassed housing, mid-income housing, or low budget housing. I mean, there's no budget housing, come to think of it. Very few budget housing either available in form of inventory or, they're not being made, they're not being required.
There's neither supply nor demand.
Exactly, no supply, no demand. So what's happening here?
It's very simple. We have grown economically, we are more richer, relatively so to speak. See, what is affordability, to be honest?
The government says 50 lakh rupees for a flat, right?
50 lakh.
That way, India has a GDP of $2,600 approximately, so to speak.
Correct. Per capita.
But from a rupee to dollar parity, we are still, making decent money. We are now the fourth largest economy in the world. So sometimes the statistics takes you in a very different direction.
Absolutely. Which is why we want you to make sense of this.
The whole idea is what? Whole idea is today, three things are happening right now. A, government is saying through PM Awas Yojana, 3 crore housing are being built actually.
That's right.
So who's taking care of the lower rung of the society? Government is doing that. Right. How they're doing it is by subsidizing, giving land, giving whatever else they need to do, but they are saying we will handle the lower state of the economy by doing that now. Imagine when you look at this entire discussion about luxury and everything else, it's like the Mercedes selling their cars,
Right.
Who sells the most? Maruti sells the most.
Right.
Or the, let's say, similar cars. But how much is Mercedes selling? Maybe 10,000 units, 20,000 units.
Right.
But they make the biggest splash. But are they really representing the top end, the real market? Yes, top end, yes, but not the real market, because that is not the real market.
So tell me something, is it fair to then say that luxury housing or luxury real estate is immune to interest rates, but affordable housing could pick up if EMIs become cheaper?
See, Karthik, again, that question got lost in the translation earlier. You know, what is affordability? Affordability is something which I can afford.
Correct.
What can I afford? Today, if you say, should Gurgaon be affordable anymore? It will not be affordable anymore, because Gurgaon used to be affordable, now it is not. But however, in the NCR region, we have thrown because of this KMP, KGP highways, we have thrown another city called Sonipat. Imagine we were saying always that who built Gurgaon? Two things. A, KP Saab, B, Maruti.
Right.
Now, obviously, KP Saab is not there in Gurgaon, Sonipat, but Maruti is there now.
Right.
So the question is, you know, 40 years back, Gurgaon used to be as Mufussil a town, nobody knew about it. And today, there are similar opportunities available in the NCR region who are pretty much affordable.
Right.
You don't have to say that everybody, it's like South Delhi today. Is South Delhi affordable? No. But within the South Delhi, people have a point of entry and point of exit.
Right.
So affordability has to be seen in a manner of location, and what the location minimize and maximize to be able to say that yes, that is affordable.
So Mona, what is the consultant view on this? Land reforms in the making, will we ever see light of them? Are we really going to see acquisition of land becoming that much frictionless? And overall, I think this whole debate on the amount of taxes you have to pay from stamp duty, etc. on acquiring land, are we going to see any simplification there going forward?
So I think we've seen a fair amount of simplification. Of course, I mean, there are the elephant in the room has always been the land reforms.
Yeah.
It's an economic, political, it's a complicated issue. So, that is something where consensus needs to be built up. But other than that, I think there have been, in terms of while we still cry over, acquiring land and, approvals, all that,
because that becomes a deterrent for a lot of infrastructure to be built, a lot of commercial or retail infrastructure to be constructed, offices to come up in places, because acquiring land is such a messy affair in India.
So it is, and I think that it continues to be a challenge. Whether there is a quick fix solution to it, probably not, but I think in terms of, if you see the kind of infrastructure development which has happened, there have been fair amount of successful cases of, the governments being able to acquire land and build out projects. Whether we look at the, some of them have taken a lot of time, whether we look at the Dwarka Express, I'm sitting in NCR looking at the Dwarka Expressway or the Jewar Airport or things like that, but things have seen, there has been light at the end of the tunnel, and I think in terms of going forward, probably things will happen a little faster, because, we've kind of, also, there's been a bit of figuring out how to do things also in the past. Some things have got streamlined. There will obviously always be, and I think it's across which happens, in large scale projects. You will have challenges which will continue to be there. And just to chime into what you were saying about luxury housing and affordable, I think, as the economy has grown, like Gaurav said, the purchasing power has grown of people. So, there will be demand created at all segments of the ladder. So the categorization will happen. And it's like, affordability from whose perspective is really the thing. But, as an economy grows, as incomes are growing, as aspirations are, it's also aspirational. A lot of it is aspirational. A lot of it is also, COVID taught us all, we'll have to work at home, we'll need our separate spaces, we'll need larger, and that, you kind of, you need everything in your... it's like, at least...
We had to come during pandemic and after
pandemic. It creates that need, and when you satisfy the need is a matter of time.
And it is true. Interestingly, post-pandemic and just before and now, we've actually seen that Gurgaon has grown by 18%. I mean, the census says, because people moved to larger homes.
Right.
So the point that Mona is making is really the truth. And we are coming up with a very, very large Mall of India Gurgaon. So we see that, that movement of larger, right on the highway.
Challenges and the traffic consumption.
No, not really. Not really. But actually what is really happening is that the entire movement of people saying that, we used to live in joint families, now we want unit families. families and larger homes.
Yeah.
Having study rooms or workspaces is a matter of
You're right, actually. That explains it to some level, at least to me, Shweta, that, the house is no longer just a place to eat your breakfast
Exactly.
and come back and sleep in your
Exactly.
bed. It needs to be your own personal space. You need your workstation. You need,
Yeah.
your own area. You need your
Yeah.
own recreation, your own fitness, etc. So
Yeah.
that defines perhaps, for the premium luxury segment to be growing as opposed to perhaps the affordable segment.
All right, but come to think of it, you're right. The advent of low density homes in a way where you need more space for an average individual prior to what you would need approximately 5 years ago. You wouldn't need as much space because you'd go to office and you'd just come back and sleep at home. But it hasn't really changed for us, come to think of it. My question still remains, Mona, and before we move on from this point, you said you've got to look at affordability from a point of view of who is it affordable to, and there is a segment, and each of us, on the basis of our pay scales, on what we can afford. But having said that, there is a large section of the society who's still not able to afford shelter, roof over their head. Do you see more affordable homes coming up in the future? Do you see government now, with budget around the corner, and I don't need to know your expectations from the budget, but do you see a thrust towards affordable housing?
So I think the government's thrust has been towards affordable housing, whether you have the Prime Minister Awas Yojana and all. So there has been, and you see it in personal experiences. You have the staff and all that you talk to. There have been positive, capital creation for them through this thing, and security. It's home security that the government is aiming to provide, and I think that thrust will continue, because that's important. We can't expect the private sector to do certain things, and that the government is cognizant of, and they need to step in, and they are, I think,
Is there no value in creating affordable homes anymore?
No, there is value, and I mean, we had the listing of the largest affordable housing developer happening, a year back.
Yeah.
Okay, they are also moving into the mid segment and the luxury space, but that's been the core. So I think even in the past, I mean, the government did incentivize the private sector also to do affordable, whether it was through higher FARs, through credit-linked subsidies, through density norms, then having affordable housing as part of larger projects where 35% of the project could be affordable, and you could get the ATI, the tax benefits under that. The GST was lowered, so there has been a lot of encouragement given by the government to the private sector as well, to offset some of the issues that we see otherwise in terms of the land acquisition cost and and it takes time. So there was a lot of streamlining which happened. Nothing works to the T, I mean, we're not in a utopian world, but there were major strides. And like I said, we had, the listing of, the largest affordable housing player, which happened.
Yeah.
So that is a success story, so to say. But at the same time, there's a point to which incentives can work, and then the government needs to step in for the other. So it has to be a concerted kind of a strategy.
So the incentives are the appetizers. On that note, Gaurav, before you chime in, I think we've done the boardroom part of it. Let's just concentrate on the brunch part of it as well. Please begin, ladies and gentlemen. And Gaurav, you may continue. You had a point to make.
It's very interesting to see so many views points, and let's look at some stats right now.
Yeah.
When I was in Imar, we launched Palm Springs on the Golf Course Road
Right.
at 6,000 rupees a square foot. And Magnolia were also selling for 6,000 rupees a square foot. I had an option to buy there, but I said, fair enough, I didn't buy dealer property, I told you. So I bought into Palm Springs, bought it, sold, made some money, that's a different story.
Pushpa, should we cut the cameras? Do you want to have a conversation with him?
I'll do a sale later on. So at that time, what was the price of land in Gurgaon is important to know.
Okay.
Maybe around 2 crores, 3 crores an acre.
Okay.
Yeah. Today, they are sitting at 30 crores an acre, and you are selling at 30,000 rupees a square foot.
Right.
Now, what was more beneficial? Simple question. No. See, what is happening is today, there's a lot of, euphoria around it.
But mathematics, I've seen, usually does not work in the real estate sector.
It does.
Simple math.
Believe you me, anybody who takes his eyes off the Excel sheets or the mathematics part of it, doesn't finish the project. Then it becomes like a story, which is like a nice to have, nice talks. So you see so many developers today, even in Gurgaon, go to Dwarka Expressway, take a drive. Amongst good quality development, you'll see some of these towers which are not seeing the light of the because they're just stuck up for whatever reason. Now, why should that be the reason in such a buoyant market? It's because the guy either has run out of cash or he's got some other issue. So you got to have your eye on the ball. Why do you think good developers are good developers today? Because they never get their eye off the ball actually.
Surprisingly, in Mumbai has seen the biggest chunk of affordable housing growth. You know, it's such a surprise to me when I was reading the numbers. I thought Mumbai would be a place where you would not need affordable.
We're doing some big projects there. We got 600 acres of land in Infracorp there. The places where it is affordable housing are actually affordable.
Right.
You got to travel maybe 60 kilometers away from the city to say I'm in a
And the cities have expanded.
and the good thing is when you say Mumbai, everything is Mumbai, you know. They call it MMR region. Unlike Delhi NCR, people are still there. You got to travel really long, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You know. It's like to say Meerut is affordable, but that's Delhi NCR. It's not Mumbai, no.
Correct. True.
So that is where the trouble is. The question is, how do you make life affordable?
Yeah.
In our business, there are constant, which is like land cost.
Correct.
And then the construction cost.
Correct.
Then my
Inflation
overheads
is not helping.
Then my
Construction costs are going
overheads.
up.
Then my so-called company running, my brokerage, marketing fee. On top of that, look at the balance sheet of any listed company. It's all available in the public domain now.
Yes.
Their profits are not more than 10%, 12% across the board actually.
Right.
Somebody who's like Godrej today, the stock has moved from 800 to 3200 today in last 4 to 5 years. You know, amazing job done. Similarly, dealer, but what is their bottom line? What is happening is good companies which are delivering are delivering the promise of delivery and delivering the promise actually.
Very true. Very true. So I see your point, and I think no discussion on that really, or no debate on that. But I really want to now touch upon 2-3 aspects, and in the interest of time, let me take it first to you, Pushpa. According to you, see, data tells you, and that's why I said that real estate sometimes works in conflict with with statistics and mathematics. In real terms, stock markets have outperformed real estate, whether you look at it over a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year horizon. Gold has outperformed real estate consistently in the same period of time. Yet many people say that real estate has to be part of your asset allocation. I know you may not be a registered financial advisor, and your own, because you are representing a real estate company, your own allocation would be very different. But does it make sense to buy a residential real estate if you're not living in it?
See, if you look at Gurgaon as a market, or Noida as a market, the kind of appreciation that people have seen, be it end user or be it as an investor, it has been tremendous. So
but
I would say
you're being selective. I'm saying Nifty 50, not the whole stock market, right? And this is Gurgaon is pretty much the top 5 in the Nifty 50.
I would look at the way people are thinking, right? Earlier, millennials who are going to be forming the large part of the population used to say, I want to have an asset-light life.
Right.
All that has changed after the pandemic, right? So today, people want a home, and for most part, me, my friends, anyone around, I see even the people who are, say, working in your house, which is a very interesting stat to look at, they also want a home and a secondary home.
Okay.
The reason being that they want, you're talking about affordables, they want something in their village and they want something in the city. Right. So I think the mindset is changing a lot.
Okay.
It's about security on one hand, and it's also about investment on the other hand. They see that growth, they see the appreciation, and they see a return. Right. And so I would say this, that going forward, it's become an asset class which is far more flexible than what it used to be, and that's something that needs to be discussed. Earlier they would say stocks is the only thing that is flexible. I don't think that's the case anymore.
Okay. Mathematically, and Karthik and I have very divergent viewpoints on this, and we've had an opportunity to speak to a lot of experts on whether you should be owning a home or not. So I'm going to take that question to you, Mona. In today's day and age, if you are a millennium or a person in their mid-30s to late 30s, don't have a home, live in a tier 1 city like Delhi, should you be looking at buying that home, or should you stay invested in stock markets? I think I know better than you, who spend their life.
I'm going to listen to very carefully.
Exactly, we'll all listen.
Maybe let's sell some of the property then.
So, just a caveat, I'm way beyond the millennials in terms of age.
And hence your advisors is all the more welcome.
No, see, I think it's always good to have a balanced portfolio, in terms of, is it because the stock market is growing? I understand deposits are not growing that well, bank deposit, but have we taken all our money from banks and invested in the stock market? Probably not, because each one has its own risks and rewards. And it's also, in real estate, what has happened, and to your point that it's probably the appreciation's not been as, in the stock markets, but it's also, we should expand maybe the time frame that we are looking at. We are all getting very swayed by the last 1 year and 2 years of the stock market. But even long term, so real estate was kind of flat.
Even 10-year returns, actually, markets have given you about 12%, as opposed to maybe about 9 or 10% in the case of gold. Gold, of course, has seen this massive rally like stock markets in the last 2 years, but even when you average it out on the 10-year horizon, they have still outperformed real estate.
So in terms of, if you look at real estate, if you extend it beyond 10 years, right now we saw a major jump happening in the prices in real estate. So if we say that, okay, last 1 year, that's the return, that's not the full return, because you have to see the 10 years.
Average.
When it was like flat, then it stepped up, and that's how the real estate goes. It goes in steps and ladders, I feel. That's what I've seen. Happy for you guys to kind of talk about what you've seen. So I think it's in terms of a balanced portfolio is something which is always good, whether it's debt, equities, commodities, gold, real estate.
Where does real estate feature in that?
Exactly. Mona, let us understand now. We will appoint you the financial advisor.
Mona is talking like a true consultant, giving you all perspectives, but not giving you a decision.
Very balanced.
Well, let me now bring this conversation to you. I think, investments aside, or rather, if you were to continue with the investment story, beyond these saturated, unaffordable metros, we've spoken a lot about affordability. If one were to look at real estate investment, since you're talking about the future, and that's the whole concept of the series, where is it headed from here? Which are the top 5 cities that one should be focused on, where you, in your personal experience, see some next level of growth in real estate coming from?
Okay, fair. Now, let's step back a little bit.
Okay.
We want to be a Viksit Bharat by 2047.
See, I want to keep the political ideology outside of this, because political ideology also changes from focusing on airports.
I'm not talking about political ideology at all. I'm talking about a simple process of India becoming a developed country.
I have a quarrel with that. How do we define development?
Fair enough. Now, let's say, is India developing at a faster pace than we were 10 years back? Yes. What does it show? That we have actually reached a point of, when you say aircraft is taking off, no?
Yeah.
We have gone the takeoff point now.
Sure.
We have stopped taxing.
Sure.
Now, when your economy is on a takeoff point, what does it do? It is a strong multiplier, like of which India has not seen before.
Right. Okay.
So, therefore, sometimes we get perplexed because we have no historical perspective. What do you extrapolate? Because there is no data to extrapolate.
Very, very true.
Today, we are at a point where somehow you got to forget your past learning because they are not of any meaningful use anymore now.
Sure.
You got to believe in the only example which works, which is the global examples, to say how other economies have developed when they've gone the takeoff point.
Sure.
And we are at the cusp of takeoff point, and believe you me, today I am a strong proponent. It doesn't matter where you invest, as long as you are investing in real estate.
Okay. So you're saying city agnostic, invest in real estate
city
anywhere
agnostic,
in India,
asset class agnostic,
and stay
authorized,
invested for the long
unauthorized,
term.
doesn't matter because the growth is happening right now.
Right.
All of these growth is coming from where? It's coming from multiple factors. People are making money from multiple zones, and then you have to invest. Investment, as Pushpa rightly said, 3 things, either real estate or stocks or gold.
Yeah.
We all know the data point. Now, which is safest? How many kilos of gold can you keep in your house?
Digital gold.
Digital gold.
Still, nevertheless. Okay, fair enough. The best of the portfolio will not have more than maybe a kilo or so, or 2 kilo, 3 kilo kind of a thing.
Right.
But when you say I'm buying a 5 crore house or a 2 crore house or a 1 crore house, that still is a lot of money.
Right.
And that is a safe money.
Sure.
You don't have to look back upon.
Agnostic.
See, the thing about real estate, is that even during the flat cycles, it doesn't have a negative,
You don't lose money actually.
You don't lose money.
No, what I wanted
it
to
doesn't
understand
grow
was
as much,
for
but it doesn't
somebody
lose.
who's looking at buying
Whereas in
property.
stocks, there is that bit of, dips
Downside.
and
So
downside.
Pushpa, what I was trying to get at was that when you're looking at investing in real estate, should you look at which are those new 300 airports which are likely to be built by 2047? Should you look at the new highways which are getting constructed and hence those cities adjoining the highways? Or should you just look at greenfield cities like, let's say, Amravati, a new capital in the making?
I'll give a simple
What
example.
are the parameters that one should look at
Let me give a
while
simple example
investing?
here. When I bought my first property in Greater Noida, Sector Alpha A201, I still remember it. 200 square yards of square meter of property.
Yeah.
For how much? Only 4 lakhs.
Right.
But at that time, 4 lakhs was a decent amount of money because nobody used to go there.
Sure.
Where do you go to Greater Noida? There's no highway today, what you see. So you got to understand that if as long as there's an infra story around the place, the only thing constant was there was a DLF golf course, JP golf course, which was earlier the Sterling golf course,
That's right.
which got lost into some kind of a story and didn't turn up. But when JP took over, they did a good job over there. So the infra story in a place, and that 4 lakhs is today now how much? People know crore and something more than that.
That's right. That's right.
So I think, it's an interesting question you're asking in terms of the new cities.
New
which are going to
cities,
grow.
upcoming cities.
So definitely, if I look at Amravati, I was reading an article recently on, Chandrababu Naidu erstwhile had created a lot of good things
That's
and
right.
done a lot of good things in
That's right.
Hyderabad. So it is always in the matter of hope and future and what will happen.
Yeah.
So from what I hear, Amravati is on the rise. Apparently, it's already doubled
Yes,
after
doubled,
elections. And I hear Vizag is on the rise.
Right.
Goa is a very interesting example of what happened. It was the most sleepiest spot. And look, today Goa as a place, what changed? What changed is that people started living there. And the second home that you're talking about, today anyone who's in the city has one home in Goa. And that's their aspiration. If they don't, the largest conversations that you have in parties today is, have you got something in Goa? So all I'm saying is that...
You need one, you don't know.
Yeah.
Now
So
we need
all I'm
one.
saying is now Goa as a city has become a matter of choice.
Yeah.
I hope we don't all go there. City goers don't go and spoil the green belts of Goa.
We have a
but-
tendency of doing that. Right?
And today we are also, with all that, the population of Goa has grown.
Yeah.
The profile of audiences has grown.
Yeah.
The kind of jobs that you're talking about has really improved.
Right.
Do you know that Goa has had almost 800 new restaurants that opened COVID and later?
Okay.
That's a number.
So that's-
Today we
that's
are
a new
building a
prospect.
mall
I'm sure
in Goa.
Gurgaon would have a similar number because
Yeah.
out of those 800 new ones, 700 would have closed down and another 100 would
Not
have come
really,
up.
not really. But all I'm saying is that Goa as a city is a city of choice for investment and for otherwise, for living there.
Yeah.
As the climatic conditions are fantastic.
Right.
So as in retail, what do? We follow those cities where consumers are already seeing it
Footfalls.
as a chosen spot.
Right.
So that's the way we look at retail probably follows it the last, but it follows it at a time when there is critical mass.
Correct.
So, and we see in North, we also look at, Indore or Raipur.
Right.
People don't talk about it. There's a lot of wealth in those cities.
Oh, beautiful. I agree with you.
Yeah, smaller
So,
towns and smaller
yeah.
cities, absolutely. Since we're talking about towns and the kind of growth that some of these small cities are witnessing, one of the conversations I want to have is around smart cities. Now, government had a huge big plan of building 100 smart cities. About 1.8 lakh crore rupees were also allocated. We don't know the status of those smart cities. Many cities have seen roads being dug up, new sewage lines, pipelines being installed, but it never really took off. It seems like that conversation has been lost in a way, Mona.
So I think
100 smart cities,
We need-
right? I think
we
the
need the
target was 100 smart
consultant
cities.
approach.
How many do we have? How many real
are
smart cities
actual
do we
smart
have?
cities?
So I think in microcosms they did come up, and I don't track smart cities that much, so you'll have to give me that benefit of doubt. But in terms of in microcosms, they did come up. But I think I think the success where one should look at it is probably the infrastructure development generally which has happened, and that has led to many more kind of urban townships and urban areas and, real estate development happening like that. So I think it focused, probably that is taking time. But I think widespread because of infrastructure development and what we're talking about, the tier 2, 3 story is because of all that. So maybe it's all a give and take which happens.
Karthik, and since you're a journalist, The point is, many projects which are undertaken by private players like DLF, they seem to see a great success because you have somebody who's accountable, someone who's delivering, and then
somebody who cares about the top line and the bottom line.
Exactly, and then you have a smart city project which is entirely government initiative that has never really taken off.
So and that is what sort of is this quarrel, that is it important for the government to have longer horizon plans rather than short-lived 3-year, 5-year vision statements where, and Gaurav, let me come back to you. Like, let's say, smart cities is one example. We were destined to have 100 of them. I don't know whether we have even one real smart city thus far. Similarly, Project Udan, which was meant to have, I think, 50 airports, if I'm not mistaken. A few airports were built. Many of them were shut down because there weren't enough flights, right? There wasn't enough demand. There are ghost airports. And now we are talking about another 300 airports by 2047 in the aspiration of Viksit Bharat. Are we a little muddled up in our minds about what our priority should be when it comes to, within this larger infrastructure development, the niche focus area of what we want to build and how quickly we want to build it?
Okay, so this takes me to a more like a, what is that tank called in government?
Niti Aayog.
Niti Aayog.
Planning Commission.
Niti Aayog.
Previously.
Former Planning Commission.
Look at it very objectively right now. Government is today spending money left, right and center on across the board infrastructure projects, Call it smart cities, call it airports, call it Atal Setu for that matter. Now yesterday or day before, Mr. Gadkari inaugurated the Goa, the big, bridge, and that's a sight to see actually. I've traveled on the one half of it, now it's both the sides are open. It's a marvel of engineering, and the entire highway which is now cutting across Goa has taken so much of, traveling from South Goa to the city now is such a breeze. It used to be such a headache earlier. So what happens is, there is always a, some kind of a intent versus, like even in IIT Delhi or in any IIT, there's a topper and there's somebody who finishes last.
Sure.
But within the IIT, he is an IITian actually.
Sure.
So today, all the projects which are taking some shape are either you can say are star performers today, or maybe their so-called effect will be seen after 5 years because that's a seeding of the projects actually.
Sure.
So and government again has to look at not today when India got independent, we built this big dams in those times Sardar Sarovar Dam, and so many things came up thereafter. Now, obviously, we are benefiting out of those big projects today. But at that time, projects have been built. Could you have built more than one AIMS at that time? There was no money. Today, AIMS are coming up across the country.
Sure.
IIMs are multiplied across the country. So I would say that taking a viewpoint on smart city project for them. What is smart city? What government did? I have seen two of them, Faridabad and Udaipur. I was there in Faridabad, is close by, but Udaipur I was once. What used to be the dangling of big wires in the streets? They've all gone underground. Proper electrical engineering has been done, proper roads have been done. So given the way the roads are, smaller gullies as you call it, within them they've given them a better infrastructure to the extent possible.
Right.
Now smart means, doing the same thing better. It's not that something new is coming up. You're not reinventing the wheel here. Right. But to have done the same thing in a better way.
Wasn't the understanding of smart cities of literally reinventing the wheel and pretty much, digitization across the board, security systems digitized, colonies digitized?
Purely from a urban planning perspective, how much can you do in any city for that matter? Now,
I agree.
I'll give an example. I was in part of the NATCO delegation. We went to the Hyderabad, the police headquarters. There, believe you me, Pushpa and Mona, their tracking of the what you call traffic is amazing.
Correct.
Anybody who crosses a red light is beautifully tracked. Challan is issued right there digitally.
Right.
Now, obviously, there are some places which, because of education, as I said, Hyderabad has been able to do that. Udaipur doesn't need it because most of them are in that cycle, rickshaw, all of those things. Right. So whatever you do, the social system will not allow you to, challan anybody for that matter. But are they internet connected? Yes, they are internet connected. Are their metering is done in some kind of systematic manner? Earlier, they used to all chorify the, electricity. Now it's all meters there. Whatever little bit can be done, given the complexities of the system, it's an initiative. Now, some of them have reached. Indore, for example, today says that I am the cleanest city in the country.
Yeah.
That's Swachh Bharat is what? After all, we've been seeing garbage heaps right across where we stand, Today, they're not there anymore now. So, it's a work in progress. But believe you me, what is important is government should not look at the IRRs and the benefit from a financial perspective, they should look at it from a social perspective.
Right.
So also in terms of, to develop new cities, like you said, land acquisition becomes a problem. There are those complications as well. So it's a mixed bag.
It's an interesting point you made that private sector looks at everything on an IRR perspective, 10-year or 5-year horizon, but the government shouldn't. Yeah.
Or maybe,
Winston Churchill
I
once said,
believe
"What
maybe
100 is the life
government
of a
should.
nation."
Maybe that is when we'll finally see projects getting completed.
No, he's talking about social perspective.
Social perspective. All right, I think with that we've come to the end of this show.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank
you
you.
so much
Thank
for
you.
having this brunch with us. You've
Thank you.
eaten very little. I'll request you to continue with the eating as we cut the cameras. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Boardroom Brunch. Shweta Kothari, Karthik Malhotra signing off. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.